Hey everyone, this is our presentation on sea turtles and tortoises. My name is Abigail, and the other presenters are Isabel and Leanne. So first we're going to talk about, we have a little craft for this, and the first craft is building a sea turtle, which is playing right now. It is sped up. You can slow down the video and rewatch this video and just kind of slow it down. The stuff that is needed for all of this is scissors, paper, markers to color it, which we didn't color in the video, and in addition, googly eyes to add the eyes, a paper bowl for the first one, and a half of a water bottle for the second one. And you can choose which either craft you want to do, and they're both on there. And then, so today we'll be talking about the evolution of turtles. We'll talk about sea turtles' form and function, we'll talk about tortoises' form and function, and then we'll compare and contrast the two. So first we'll talk about the evolution of turtles. Talking about the history of turtles, so Unicotorus africanus was the first ever known turtle. It was 260 million years ago. This is the middle of the Permian period. This turtle lacked a shell, a plastron, and a carapace. In addition, this turtle also had teeth, which is different from the turtles we see nowadays. I'll be talking about sea turtles' form and function. Sea turtles have a shell. They also have flippers, claws, beaks, and a beak. And then they also have a mandolin succulent and a lateral one too. In addition, they have prefrontal scales. The scales help to tell when you're trying to identify what type of which sea turtle it is. It helps to identify, and they also have plastron.
Going over sea turtle function. I've actually attached a video to this slide. If you would like to watch it, you can click the link below, but for video purposes, I cannot include it in the presentation recording. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the shell of sea turtles. We all know that the main function of shells is to protect them from predators, and they are actually made out of hard keratin, and so this actually makes their shell much harder for predators to eat them. And then also oftentimes you'll find small organisms known as amphibionts living on the sea turtle shells, which will usually get eaten by fish, and this is also benefiting to the turtle in that this actually gets their shell more clean. And so in the water, we know that sea turtles have to have modified limbs, and so they actually have flippers, and this provides propulsion through the water. And even on land, they have a purpose for their flippers. The flippers serve to actually support their overall body. Sea turtles do not have teeth, but instead they actually use their beaks to help them tear their food into smaller pieces, and usually they'll just swallow the food in small amounts to consume their food. They also have non-retractile head and limbs, and because the turtle shell is part of the turtle's spine, it's the main form of the outer skeleton, which can explain why they can't hide their limbs or head inside the shell. And also when just looking at the structure, you can see that it's also more flatter than tortoise shells, and so there's actually not even enough space in the shell for the head to retract into. When looking at the tails of sea turtles, we can see that the tails are larger in males than in females, and this is because the male reproductive organs are found in the tail. And then one fun fact I found about sea turtles is that they can actually hold their breath underwater for 4 to 7 hours, but occasionally have to come up to land for oxygen.
Next, I'm going to be talking about the structure and function of tortoises. So there are several structures of the tortoise. First, we have the mandible, which is the lower part of the jaw. Then we have their shell, which consists of 4 parts. First is a vertebral shell. It's the scale right above the spine of the turtle. Then we have the coastal shell, where there are scales on the side of the shell. Then there's the marginal shell, which are the scales that help form the outer edge of the tortoise shell. And then finally, the nuchal shell is basically a hard plate that forms a shell altogether that is located close to the nape of the neck. Next, we have the hind legs. The hind legs, when you think of the word hind, you think of far. So in other words, it is the farthest or rearmost limb. Then there is the front legs, which are the opposite. They're the closest or foremost limb of the tortoise. And then next is the pygonal shield. This is a scale separated from the shell, but is located right above the tail. And lastly, obviously, is the tail, where the spinal column continues, or it's basically an extension of the spinal column. Next, I'll be talking about the function of tortoises. First, we have the mandible. It helps in eating their food and the processing of it.
The mandible is also composed of 7 bones. Next is their shell. Their shell serves as a form of protection, such as camouflage. It is also an extension of the rib cage. It is split into two. The top is known as the carapace, and the bottom of the shell is known as the plastron. And they come together by a sort of bridge. Not only is it a source of protection, but we can also tell how many growth spurts a tortoise has had. Very old turtles will have worn scutes, which makes their shells look smoother. If you also see bumpier shells, there may be something wrong with their diet or health issues. The picture on the side, you can see how the turtle hides in its shell to camouflage it. So like their shell kind of blends in with the grass so they could hide well, and so they'll go into the shell when they see a form of a predator. Next is their hind legs. It helps them carry their extra weight so they move around easier. Some tortoises, get really big, so they will need really strong hind legs to help them move around. Next, their tails help them dispose of waste and with mating. Also, with tails, it helps us determine what gender they are. Males will tend to have a longer tail than females.
Be going over a comparison between sea turtles and tortoises. So first I'm going to talk about the sea turtle. So just from looking at the image here on the screen, we can see that it has a more streamlined shell. And then as previously discussed, we know that it has non-retractile head and limbs. And this is because there just isn't enough space, and it's also not attached to where it can actually go inside the shell. And then because it lives primarily in water, it has to have flippers. That way it has a way of swimming throughout the ocean. And then they are primarily found in the ocean, but they also occasionally come to land to lay their eggs for reproduction. And so in this case, they are actually more vulnerable on land than they are in water. And then when focusing on tortoises, we can see just from looking at the image that they are capable of retracting their head and limbs inside their shell. They have enough space in the shell to do this. And so they actually have a more dome-shaped shell than a streamlined shell. And then they also have column-shaped feet with claws, which helps with their survival on land, which is why they're primarily found on land than in water. And then they'll occasionally enter the water only to drink water and to also clean themselves because they do get dirty from walking around on land. All of our citations used for this PowerPoint presentation, and we would like to thank everybody for taking time to listen to our presentation today over sea turtles and tortoises.